Hi guys. The US shuts down the consulate in Iraq, Basra, citing Iranian threats. Now, this came just before Iran launched rockets at Syria. Now, Iran launched rockets at Syria yesterday in retaliation for the military parade attacks that took place on September the 22nd. Basra is right here on the border with Iran. So my thoughts are they closed the consulate here to avoid any civilian or collateral damage. And they have now
Tough times for President Hassan.
Joined forces with Iraq to respond to Iran's increasing threats. So looking at the map, they've now got basically a way to get to Iran through Iraq. However, in Syria, Russia has just installed the S-300 missile air defense system, as well as the electronic warfare system, which enables them to track, enables them to block communications and radar, but also enables them to track planes, fighter jets and military and commercial, as far as Europe. So they'll be able to tell when planes are flying or even just taxiing on the runway, which means any strikes from Israel and the United States in the Mediterranean going through Syria, over Iraq into Iran would need to come up against Russia's S-300 air defense system and combat the electronic warfare there, which is what Israel discussed with the United States at the UN Assembly about 3 days ago. So it looks as if they're trying to get to Iraq, but they're being, I'll say, thwarted or at least delayed by Russian intervention. So when you consider all of that, you have to consider what would happen if Iran attacked or Iran was attacked. Well, one of the things that would most likely happen is the Strait of Hormuz will be blocked. That's more likely to happen in November, around the time where the sanctions on Iran's oil comes into place. Now, if Iran blocks off the Strait of Hormuz on this side, then that would stop oil coming from Iran, the United Arab Emirates, Iraq, and even Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia has another option in terms of the Red Sea, but I'll just bring it up here. Yes. But they have the issue of the Houthis, the Iran-linked Houthi movement in Yemen, which earlier this year attacked some oil tankers traveling through the Red Sea, and as a result, the shipments were suspended. They have been resumed now, but you can see in the event of a war with Iran, the Strait of Hormuz will be blocked, so no oil coming out this way, and the gap between Djibouti and Yemen would be blocked by the Houthis, or at least tankers would come under fire from the Houthis passing Yemen, so most likely no oil will be coming out of the Red Sea, no oil coming out of the Persian Gulf. That chokes up a lot of the world's oil. In that region, there's at least 3 of the top exporters of oil, being Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and the United Arab Emirates. Again, go back to the map, and we can see Iraq, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. Iran is another exporter of oil, but blocking this off would trap all the oil from these countries within this region. Again, you can't get any oil out of Saudi Arabia if the Houthis decide that they're going to give some issues around Yemen. You could try and go through Jordan and come out through Israel, but with the naval build-up with Russian forces and American forces and NATO forces occurring in the Mediterranean Sea, it's likely in the event of war with Iran that war would kick off in the Mediterranean Sea as well, making it dangerous and nigh impossible for oil tankers to come out this way. So oil is trapped in this region, which would obviously affect the global price of oil. That would go up. Obviously the supply would go down, so where we have wars for oil where we're not in dire need, in this circumstance oil would dry up pretty quickly. Obviously each country has reserves, but the moment you start dipping into those reserves it will affect your economy, and the likelihood is that as soon as Iran blocks the Strait of Hormuz, the economies around the world will start taking a little nosedive, and that will be escalated as the situation gets worse. So just a few things covered there. And then you've got the fact that EU, China and Russia are circumventing the US sanctions on Iran by using a different currency. 7 European banks are ready to work with Iran despite US sanctions. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said the central banks of 7 European states are ready to work with Iran despite the impending US sanctions. The banks have agreed to create a special mechanism, which I reported on previously, to facilitate financial transactions with the Islamic Republic once the US financial sanctions against Iran come into force in November. That's November 4th, which is why I'm saying it's more likely that war with Iran is going to kick off around that time. The time period I have for that is October the 31st to November the 5th. Obviously, November the 5th, remember. I will give you 2 other dates I'm looking at in just a few moments. But Iran is also instructing its central bank to defend the rial by intervening in the forex market. Now, I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but they could go about undercutting other currencies or inflating their own. It's just another indication that sanctions on Iran are not going to work this time around, so then probably going to have to take a different route if the whole thing is stopping Iran from gaining or using nuclear capabilities. Again, when you look at the region here, the potential for war kicking off with Iran has slightly been mitigated by Russia with its air defenses and its electronic warfare in Syria. But if Israel and the United States can get past Syria, get past the Russian defenses there, they can then get into Iraq, where I've already reported that Iraq has joined forces with the United States in terms of responding to Iran's threats, and that will give them a straight path to Iran. Obviously, then they have to contest with the Iranian military as well as the Russian fighter jets and bombers that were moved there in April, when the United States, France, and the United Kingdom were firing missiles into Syria in response to the alleged chemical weapons that were used there. Trying to keep track of it all. Then, moving on, still in the same region but slightly different topic, is the fact that Syria is saying that it's going to take the Golan Heights back from Israel. So the Golan Heights is like a buffer zone between Israel and Syria, and the reason for that is because Iranian forces are in Syria, and obviously Israel has concerns about Iranian forces attacking Israel. If the Golan Heights are taken back or they're thrown into conflict, it means that the border between Israel and Syria has just massively reduced. Therefore, in that situation, if Syria goes for the Golan Heights, another potential for World War III escalating out of that. Another situation it could escalate out from is the demolishment of the village in the West Bank. Israel has given the Palestinians there till today to evacuate. So one would assume from tomorrow they would begin demolition. They may not, depending. We've had a lot of lobbyists, I'll call them, telling Israel not to demolish the villages, but Israel most likely will still go ahead. If that happens, then it's likely there will be a huge escalation of conflict on the Gaza Strip, which is obviously, again, closely connected with Israel. If all of these things were to occur at the same time, then there'd be points of contention all over the Middle East. The Gaza Strip coming from this this village in the West Bank being demolished, coming from Syria, if Idlib and everything like that, if that situation it devolves as it currently is, but it's not exploded as we suspected it would. Things kind of got calmed down a little bit by Turkey, and Russia and Turkey agree in a demilitarized zone, but still Syria and Russia want to take back the rest of the country, and they will. I think with the S-300 air defense system in place and the electronic warfare system in place, it enables Russia and Syria to go ahead with the Idlib attack, whilst at the same time having some form of protections against any retaliations that may come, as the United States and other countries have said they would, especially if chemical weapons are used. So they're preempting each other all the time. When you see these movements taking place months in advance, it's for something that's going to take place months later or even weeks later. So I see the air defense system, the electronic warfare system as a no-fly zone, and that's going to be a precursor to the attack in Idlib, which obviously is going to be responded to because we've had all the reports of chemical weapons being readied to be used over there, and obviously that could be associated with a false flag. Russia's blaming Britain, the United States is blaming Syria, everyone's blaming each other. But the basis of it is that if there is a chemical attack, Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and the USA are likely to go and launch an attack in Syria. And obviously that means they're going to come up against the defense system, and that would mean they'd have to take it out, which would obviously mean they'd have to engage directly with Russia. If they do manage to take it out, then obviously looking at the map, that would give them an easier access through Syria, through Iraq, to Iran. So the chain just keeps on building in that respect. Sticking with Iran, they have taken the United States to the International Court of Justice in relation to the sanctions they say are illegal. The United States has already preempted the decision by the International Court of Justice, which is due on Wednesday, by saying they have no jurisdiction over the United States when it comes to national security, which is what the United States is saying the sanctions are for. They placed sanctions on Iran for national security reasons, and that's obviously related to their nuclear program, which Benjamin Netanyahu just brought out another sort of picture or document showing, allegedly showing a secret warehouse where Iran is storing or stocking up on nuclear material. Again, we don't know if that's true, but these are the reports and I'll bring them to you. The UK is sending 800 soldiers to the Arctic. A lot of countries are sending soldiers to the Arctic as the Arctic ice melts up there, blamed on global warming, but I believe weather weapons would have been used in that respect to melt the ice if that's the case. The reasons for countries wanting to get into the Arctic, they claim oil, natural resources, minerals, all that kind of stuff. But there's a rumour that there's something buried in the Arctic, or at least under the ice. And this is where it gets a little bit, not so much factual based, but rumour based. Something under the ice in terms of biblically or historically. And we're talking Nephilims or giants. Now I know that obviously may throw some people off. You probably click stop on the video straight away. But bear with me, because I'm just going to reference something I pointed out a long time ago when I was deciphering the scene, and what I could see here was an underground explosion, the earth being lifted up. This section here is a cross section of the earth, so it's just showing you the earth being lifted up and the water above that with the ships on top of it. But over here I pointed out that there appears to be a face, a man's face of some kind, just over here, sideways. So I'll try and point it out for you guys. You've got like this section here, this is where the hair is, dark black hair, if you want to call it that. This section here is the forehead, this going down is the nose, and to either side would be the eyes. This eye would be partially covered, and this eye you can't really make out distinctively, but you can tell that's where the eye would be. To me, it appears to be closed, so like sleeping or something, I don't know. Above that, you've got what could be a horn, but is also in the shape of a Z, which is reminiscent of a lightning strike, which obviously relates to the devil and Satan and all of that. Now, biblically, I can't think right now if there's any references to something being buried in the earth. I know that a beast comes out of the earth, but I don't know if that's what this is relating to. Either way, the rumors are there's something in the Arctic that these people, and when I say these people who I'm referencing, they are trying to get to, and have been for a while now, but they're much closer than they have previously been, and they blame it on global warming, which is actually energy weapons. In my opinion, I don't know if that's true, but that's in my opinion. So I'm keeping an eye on the Arctic, and seeing. Obviously, I don't think I'll be able to know if anything is hidden in the ice unless I'm willing to travel there, which I'm not. But I'll keep my eyes on all reports coming out of the Arctic in reference to what we've just discussed. North Korea is saying they will not denuclearize until there is trust between the United States and North Korea. Now, that's not going to happen. at the end of the day, what it looks like is, well, I can talk about from a political perspective, from the Trump administration, it just looks like delay. So you've gone to a meeting in Singapore to the island of death from behind. You've apparently agreed to denuclearize. I say denuclearize. I'm just going to leave that word. Struggling with it at the moment. But you promised to do that, and then you don't really. According to all reports, you're still progressing towards nuclear weapons. So throughout this whole time where we've been talking about peace and it's been looking nice and loving between South Korea, North Korea, and the United States, the North Koreans have been building missiles, building submarines, and still building their nuclear capability. Now, if you now turn around to North Korea and say, okay, you're not upholding your end of the agreement, we're back to fire and fury, bloody no strike, North Korea is much further along than they were before. If you consider the last time North Korea did a nuclear test and the last time North Korea did a ballistic missile test, they were both successful, which means they no longer have to do tests. They've reached a point where they have a feasible product to use. So if it gets back to fire and fury and a bloody no strike, it's less likely, even more so, that kind of talk would work, because North Korea would have a substantial nuclear arsenal by then, and the risks would far outweigh the benefits. Again, it brings my mind back to the report I read a month or two ago, where the US troops have moved 70 kilometers away from the DMZ, which to me just says something is coming, and the US preemptively, everything is preemptive, so they have preemptively moved their troops 70 kilometers away. So in the event, they'd still be within range, but obviously they'd have a longer time to respond. But it seems as if the Trump administration, or at least the military commanders, are well aware of the potential for a conflict kicking off with North Korea, even in this, peace and safety zone that we find ourselves in. So, kind of have to question: is the peace real? And that is a rhetorical question from my perspective, because the peace isn't real as far as I can see. It's an illusion, and things will unravel pretty quickly when the illusion is, broken. The death toll, unfortunately, in Indonesia has increased. When I brought the report to you guys, it was a very early report. Only 5 to 10 people had been reported dead at that time. Now it's over 1,000. According to this report from Daily Mail, it's 1,203. There are still some areas that they are unable to access, so the death toll is likely to increase, although I pray it doesn't. But I have to consider that without food, water, shelter, electricity, medical supplies, people are going to be having a really hard time in a difficult situation, and that may result in the death toll increasing. As I said, I pray it doesn't. You guys, I hope you also pray that the death toll doesn't increase and the survivors are able to get to the resources that they need without too much difficulty, and that moving forward there will be some system in place to warn these people. But as I say that, I have to obviously keep in mind that all of these things are planned, and if they really wanted to help people, a system would have been installed after the 2004 tsunami. Now, I'm not exactly sure how the warning was issued, because there was a tsunami warning issued for Indonesia, which was later removed, and then shortly after that the tsunami arrived. So I'm not exactly sure how that system worked or where it came from, but the evidence suggests that the mistake was on the government's part, whichever government that may be, and they need to be held accountable. So just bear in mind that when you're reading these reports, there was no tsunami warning or something like that. That's a lie. There was a tsunami warning, and it was later taken away. With all that information, you guys, I think just a quick recap, looking at Iran, the potential for conflict kicking off there increases daily, especially coming up to November, the November timeline. November the 4th, I believe, is the date for the sanctions to go in place. Obviously, the EU, Russia, China, even India are going to be working against those sanctions. So basically, not going to be complying with the United States in that sense, which obviously could lead to a military conflict with Iran, which obviously could lead to a military conflict with Syria and Russia in Syria, because you kind of need to go through Syria, then through Iraq to get to Iran. You could argue to go through Jordan, Saudi Arabia, then to Iran, but one, you'll be using more fuel. Second, Saudi Arabia will not publicly allow Israel or the United States to use its airspace. Obviously, that's to do with the relationship between the Muslim countries and Israel itself. So that wouldn't be done publicly. Could allow it to be done secretly, but how long would it be till that information was uncovered? At the same time, the potential for going over Qatar is reduced because of the blockade conflict between Qatar and the rest of the Muslim nations that surrounded it. And out of all of those, only Iran was there to support the Qatari people while they were under these sanctions. So Qatar kind of owes Iran in that respect, and makes things a lot more difficult if you want to attack Iran. It means that you have to come this way, which means you have to, obviously, as I've said, S-300 air defense system, electronic warfare. Get past that, you get to Iraq. They've removed the American civilians from Basra in the consulate here, so that's clear straight through into Iran. And that's where they'll most likely target several of Iran's nuclear bases around the country. But at least one of those attacks is going to result in a response from Iran, which may go towards Iraq itself, or American bases in Iraq. Could again go to Syria, with American bases in Syria. Could even launch attacks directly at Saudi Arabia, reigniting that war over there, and even the United Arab Emirates as well. So a lot of things to look out for. I'm going to keep my eyes on it, bring you the reports as I do. And with that, have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and may the Heavenly Father bless you.